In the last 4 weeks, we've added more than 800 new subscribers. If you watch the content all the time but you haven't subscribed, please click the red subscribe button below. It really helps us grow to a wider audience. It's absolutely free and it means you won't miss any content. Let's get into today's video. What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. It might be the international break, but we're going to keep the Celtic content coming during the break so you can get your fix. I know that it's boring. We get bored as well. We miss the real stuff. So we're going to keep the content coming over this international break. Coming up today, we're going to look back at Celtic's start to the season and look at three key takeaways, comparing where the side were at last season to how they've started this campaign. And we'll also look ahead to the next block of fixtures before the October international break. Celtic have got 6 games, 6 big games, lots to look forward to as the Champions League campaign gets underway. So we'll look at that in a minute. But first of all, let's just quickly reflect on Sunday's Derby victory. I hope everybody's recovered. It's Wednesday now, you should be. Another brilliant day at Celtic Park, another brilliant Derby victory. And I think it was actually as easy as everybody anticipated it might be. After that first sort of 10 minutes, where the team were getting to grip with the Rangers press. I think after that first time we played out, it really calmed everybody down. And for the rest of that first half, it was one-way traffic. We absolutely dominated the game. Could have had more goals than the 2 that we got in that first half. And then I think getting into the second half, we actually weren't brilliant in the second half. We weren't anywhere near top gear in the second half, but we managed the game well, and 2-0 is always a precarious lead. And we go on and get the third goal. And it caps a really comfortable victory for us. But I think we can play better than that. There was lots of good individual performances on the day, but I think collectively, the way we've been playing this season, the new players that have come into the team towards the end of the transfer window, I think we've got gears to go through. I think we can improve this season, and we can get much, much better. And that's ominous for the rest of the league. It's certainly ominous for Rangers, given the shape that they're in. But what a brilliant day. What a brilliant night we had celebrating it in Malone's. If you haven't watched the post-match pint, you can find it. I'll link it up here. And at the end of the video. It was the first post-match pint of the season. Great to have Callum back on the channel, of course, but also great to be back toasting another Celtic victory over Rangers. So let's take a quick look back at those opening 5 fixtures for Celtic this season. We started with that resounding 4-0 win over Kilmarnock. We won 2-0 at Easter Road. Then we had the double header with Hibs in the Cup. We won 3-1. Conceding the only goal so far in that game. We had a really comfortable afternoon at St Mirren. We ran out 3-0 winners, and then of course Sunday's 3-0 win over Rangers. So we've scored 15 goals so far this season, conceding only 1. 12 goals in the league, conceding 0. We've started absolutely brilliantly. I think you can really see the progress in the team this season. We're in a brilliant groove. I think you can tell that some of the question marks that were there at this time last season, if you think back, lots of people were unsure about the form of the team, even though we won those first few games and we had that victory at Ibrox. There was lots of question marks about the performance level of the team, how the new players were fitting in. But this season we've absolutely hit the ground running. So today we're going to look at 3 key takeaways that I think mark the improvement from last season to this. Now, the first one is undoubtedly the togetherness. I think that's both of the team, the management, but also the supporters as well. If you cast your mind back to the beginning of last season, it was difficult, and Postecoglou had just left the club. I think that contributed to a huge energy dump psychologically for the team, certainly for the supporters, because we loved Postecoglou, we loved the style of football we played. And then also Brendan Rodgers coming back, which I think was awkward for a lot of people because of their feelings about the way he left. I think we were all a bit unsure, and it felt really surreal that Brendan Rodgers was back as the manager of the club. And when you couple that with the change in style, because Brendan Rodgers certainly has a more considered possession style than Postecoglou. Postecoglou's football was like breakneck speed, constantly trying to play forward at all times, and we absolutely loved it. We'd been playing some brilliant football. We were off the back of a treble, and then you have that change in manager, not just any change in manager, as I say, bringing Brendan Rodgers back. And I think there was a settlement period of everybody getting back used to seeing Brendan Rodgers there, the team getting used to his style, his methods compared to Postecoglou's. And I think undoubtedly there was a teething period that may or may not have lasted most of the season. And I know that when we got to that last 8 or 10 games, it really looked like we'd clicked, and we went and won the league and cup double. But I think this season you can see the difference. Now that everybody's comfortable, the players are really comfortable with Brendan and his methods. I think you can see that there might have been even some tweaks in terms of the speed we're playing at, the intensity we're playing at. There's certainly differences in the pressing and the defensive intensity, which we'll come to in a minute. But I think the togetherness and the spirit in the team, Brendan Rodgers always talks about actually the connection between the fans and the players and the manager. I think when that's all together, Celtic are in a really good place. I think that's where that is just now. I think the way the team have started the season is brilliant. I think we're seeing something a lot closer to a proper Brendan Rodgers team, as numerous people have commented on so far this season, and I think it bodes well going forward. Now we've got the big challenge of the Champions League coming up, where the expectation level is going to be high given the draw. Again, we'll touch on that more in just a minute, but I think the togetherness and the spirit in the team, the good energy, is clear to see. It's a difficult thing to measure. I can't show you a stat that gets across the spirit and the good energy in the team, but you can just tell from watching this team that they're in a really good place. I think a good example of that is Matt O'Reilly leaving, who's been such a key player for us, and we've played 2 games since then. A difficult away game at St Mirren, and then the first derby of the season we've won both 3-0. We've played really well, we've looked really comfortable, and that's after taking a key cog in the team out in Matt O'Reilly. That shows you how together the team is, how well they're playing. You can take such an important player like O'Reilly out, slot Paulo Bernardo in, and really we haven't missed Matt O'Reilly so far. I know it's early days, and it's only been those 2 games, but I think that tells you what a good place the team is in right now. Next up is the second key takeaway for the start of this season is the defensive intensity, the pressing. This is something I think is worlds apart from where we were at the start of last season. I actually asked Brendan Rodgers about this in the pre-match press conference before the Rangers game, and here is what he had to say.
Our pressing. I always say that passing the ball and pressing are like twins. When you press the game well, you pass the game well. And that was probably the first 6 months of last season where we weren't doing either so well with enough consistency. That started to pick up in the second part of the season, and then really that last 3 months of the season then tagged on to our pre-season. Now if you guys probably look at and analyse the games and do everything, we've had 3 shots against us in 3 games. So that tells you how hard the team's pressing and working together. And that elevates then the football. So I always say our mantra here is respect the 30%, because that's the most important bit. The bit when you don't have the ball, how aggressive you are. And that was why it was nice last week whenever Stephen talked after the game about, he changed his team and probably wanted to go physical and set pieces and everything. But we done all the dirty side of the game, and the top players do that. They do the dirty side. Some people call it the easy. It's not the stuff that gets noticed a lot in the stands, but it's absolutely key from a coaching perspective and a player's perspective. So that pressing side, the aggression, the compactness of the team, that all then brings the football to another level. That's been the most pleasing part.
So there you go, you can tell the manager's so pleased with the way the team is pressing the game. You could tell that from the first minute in pre-season, really, when we played against the likes of Man City and Chelsea. It was clear that there was a brilliant defensive intensity to the team, and we've carried that on into this season now. I've said with the last one in terms of togetherness and the spirit of the team is something that's really hard to measure and really hard to show you a stat that gets that across, but it can be coupled to the way that we're pressing the game. And as Brendan Rodgers said there, the respect that we're showing to the other 30-40% of the game when we don't have the ball. So if you look at last season, the XG faced against in the first 5 games was 0.96. So far this season in the first 5 games it's 0.56. Now I know XG isn't for everyone, but it just shows you the quality of chances that we're facing, which is dramatically reduced. Now I know that proper stats people would tell you that 5 games is a really small sample, but I think that gets across how well the team are defending collectively, and it's really contributing to much less shots faced for Kasper Schmeichel, but also the quality of those shots is also much less as well. So we can also look at shots on target, which we know is a key stat. Certainly if you listen to the Rangers manager, shots on target is probably the most important stat in the world. Shots on target faced in the first 5 games last season, 2.4 on average. This season so far in the first 5 games, it's averaging 1.6. So again, that's a marked drop in the shots on target that we're facing against us, and that again speaks to the defensive intensity the team are playing with, the collective pressing that we're doing to prevent teams from getting into our box, to creating high quality chances. I think that's such a big improvement for where we were at last season. If you even think about the first league game last season where we won 4-2 against Ross County, it did seem like we were a wee bit open at times and we didn't really have the defensive setup of the team sorted. That's such contrast to where we're at now at the start of this season. I've been really, really impressed with the way the team has defended so far, and as we go forward, that's the thing that wins you league titles, having that defensive intensity and really restricting your opponents to few chances, conceding few goals. That's the thing that wins you league titles in the long run. So third on the list of key takeaways, I think, for the start of the season is undoubtedly the wide play. Again, last season we had so many problems with wide players, whether it be Palma, Yang, Forrest wasn't involved. I know Kuhn came in halfway through the season, so he's not really involved here. But we had so many problems with wide players and we really struggled to get them into the game and to really impact the game. Now, I think of the 15 goals that we've scored so far this season, only one of them has come from Kyogo. We've had a really good spread of goals in these first 5 matches, and I think the wide play has been integral to that. We've seen Maeda get on the score sheet, we've seen Kuhn score 3 goals, which matches his tally for last season after coming in January, and I think, again, something that's integral to the wide play is the role of the fullbacks. I know that Greg Taylor is certainly coming into the pitch more and Johnson is on the other side as well, but Johnson's underlapping runs, his ability to get to the byline, that running power that he's got a goal and a couple of assists, obviously most notably for Maeda to get the opener against Rangers at the weekend, showing that powerful running to get to the byline, to keep it in, cut it back. So not just the improvement in the wingers with the likes of Kuhn and Maeda, but also the increased role of the fullbacks in getting to the byline and helping us create chances. I think that's worlds apart again from where we were at last season. But if you think back, obviously the fullbacks were such a key factor under Postecoglou, and that was a drop-off last season. I think in the early part we were thinking, where's Greg Taylor at? Alistair Johnston doesn't really look like the same player. But this season, the two of them look absolutely superb in this early part of the season. And again, whether it be underlaps or overlaps and how they're contributing to the build-up, but also when they're coming inside in the build-up, that's leaving the likes of Kuhn and Maeda free to run at their fullback, and I think that's such a stark improvement to the wide play that we witnessed last season. So let's have a look now at the next block of fixtures after this international break. We've got 6 games before the October international break rolls around. 3 of them are at Celtic Park. We start with 3 home games, followed up by 3 away games, and here they are. We start Hearts at home. They're obviously in terrible form this season, Hearts, so we'll look more in detail at Hearts obviously as we build towards that game, but we start in the league at home at Hearts. Then we've got the first Champions League game, which represents a massive opportunity for us to get points on the board against Slovan Bratislava, who are the lowest ranked team that we'll face. That gives us a huge chance to get off to a good start in the new Champions League format, because after that the next 3 Champions League games are probably the toughest, because we've got the likes of Dortmund, Atalanta and Leipzig. So that first game against Bratislava is huge in the context of our European campaign this season. Then at the weekend, following up after that game, we've got Falkirk in the League Cup at home, and then we start the 3 away games. So we'll have a free week between Falkirk and St Johnstone away. Then we've got the first trip to Dortmund, which will be a brilliant trip for the supporters. We'll be there covering the game, bringing you as much content as we can, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of that. Really looking forward to that Dortmund game, but that's a really tough one for the team, Champions League finalists last season. A really tough place to go. I'm sure the atmosphere will be absolutely amazing. Can't wait for that trip, can't wait for that game. And then we come back to Scotland and we have a trip up to the Highlands to face Ross County, who again have started the season really poorly. But that's a long away trip after a Champions League away game during the week. So that's the next 6 fixtures for Celtic. A key group of fixtures before we finish up for the October international break in around a month's time. But lots to look forward to. Lots of tough games there in terms of the Champions League games. We'll have to navigate that. That's where I think we'll see the squad being used, and we'll see a lot more from the new signings, the likes of Engels, McCowan, Valle. Maybe we'll see Austin Trusty come in and start some of these games, although having said that, Liam Scales was absolutely superb at the weekend, so Trusty's got work to do to get a foot in the door in the team, given how well we're playing and given how well Scales has been defending as well. But lots to look forward to in that next block of fixtures, and we'll be bringing you content from the stadium at every single game, so please don't miss any of it. That rounds up today's video. We'll be back with you later in the week where we're going to have a more detailed look at the transfer window. We're going to get Callum on with us for that one. So like this video, thank you for watching, and as I say, please don't forget to subscribe so you keep up with all the content through this international break and as we go into this next block of fixtures. Thank you.